Bills fans, I'm not even going to attempt to lie to you. I'm not going to tell you a white lie. I'm not going to tell you a partial lie. The truth is, this was likely the worst season y'all will have in the last 5 years.
Shut up, the Bills! It's not outside! It's not outside! Yeah, we the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, we the Buffalo Bills. You better know that. Look how we throwing and catching, cause we are unstoppable, yeah. You better know that. Look how we running and hitting, cause we are unstoppable, yeah. Reppin' the mafia, yeah. Reppin' the mafia, Bills, mafia, yeah. You better know that. Look how we throwing and catching, cause we are unstoppable, yeah. You better know that. Look how we running and hitting, cause we are unstoppable, yeah. Told me now listen, everyone play their position. Buffalo got a tradition. They say we tripping, they better get out our way. Top of the table, we flipping. We on a mission. Got an unstoppable team. Continue to follow your dream by any means. Buffalo, get in the Super Bowl ring. Cause we the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, we the Buffalo Bills. You better know that. Look how we throwing and catching, cause we are unstoppable, yeah. You better know that. Look how we running and hitting, cause we are unstoppable, yeah. Reppin' the mafia, yeah. Reppin' the mafia, Bills, mafia, yeah. You better know that. Look how we throwing and catching, cause we are unstoppable, yeah. You better know that. Look how we running and hitting, cause we are unstoppable, yeah. Mafia up in your city, time to get gritty. Screaming and yelling, we bugging. Look at the red and blue.
This is an MVP year for Josh Allen. As an MVP voter, I said this last week. Josh Allen, he looks like an MVP. When you vote for MVP, and I can speak for myself, I think I'm one of 50 voters, you look at a couple things. Who's the best team in football? Who's the best player on that team in football? What do they look like as the best player on that team in football? And how much talent is around that best player on that best team in football?
Cause we done Buffalo Bills. Yeah, we done Buffalo.
Welcome back to another episode of Coast to Coast. Your host, Whittle 2K. Co-host Beane 716 should be here shortly. But while we wait, we'll talk a little bit about what's been going on lately. So the Buffalo Bills, actually all the NFL teams, um, went through the whole free agency period. Some overpayments were made, some underpayments were made, some players got signed, and a couple players got moved. And some guys didn't get signed. Some guys that I expected to be on the team, just for whatever reason, didn't get brought back. So it's definitely a new look so far, this roster. Can't say that I'm down on it. Can't say that I'm super intrigued by it either. I like the move so far. So far, so good. I can't complain. Like the Bradley Chubb trade. Um, yeah, that's pretty much. Bradley Chubb trade was cool. Brought D. Alford, a couple of safeties, little signings here and there. Nothing too crazy. We talked about the trade for DJ Moore last week. But now that free agency is pretty much over with, we're going to talk a little bit about the draft. We're going to get into the draft breakdowns. We're going to talk about a couple of positions that need. And for some reason, wide receiver still remains at the top of most people's list for things to add to this roster. So we're going to talk about receivers today. Another thing that we need to talk about is defensive tackle. We do need to add some guys on the defensive line, and yeah, we're going to do that. I am pretty much wait and see with this team. We said that already. We'll see what happens. I fully expected things to go differently last year, but for whatever reason, they didn't go different last year. So here we are, and we're gonna bring in one of our draft experts, one of the guys that I rely on for draft talk. He's very, very well versed in all of these prospects. So without further ado, I'm going to bring my guy Jerick on, and we'll get going. Jerick, what's up, brother?
What's going on, man?
Not much, man. Not much, bro. It's been a long off season, but here we are. We're at the draft, and where do we start? What's in your opinion? What's the major need that has to get taken care of in order for this 2026 season for the Buffalo Bills to be a successful season?
Well, it's making sure that this defense is finally an elite is finally an elite unit. I mean, obviously, we want receiver. We think that scoring 40 points a game is gonna get us to the Super Bowl. Despite, I mean, when was the last time a heavy offensive eccentric team won a Super Bowl by just prioritizing the offense? I can't remember. I can't think of one. I guess you can say the closest would be 2019 Kansas City, but Patrick Mahomes played terrible in that Super Bowl, and the reason why they won it was because of a third string running back that had 150 total yards of offense. But it's the defense that should be the priority. Again, I'm not saying that you neglect Josh because obviously you add DJ Moore, you want to try to add at least one more receiver for him. But I mean, we are essentially revamping a defense into more of a 3-4 heavy nickel and dime defense. It's more of a hybrid style. So yeah, it's 3-4, but you're going to start seeing some even man guys. But it's a hybrid defense, and this was the defense that McDermott was actually trying to go towards. Again, we take a look at the beginning of the season. What was he trying to do? You saw a lot of 3-3-5. You saw way more 3-4 than we've ever run before. I mean, you saw Michael Hoyt, you saw Gregory Rousseau aligned in different spots. He wasn't just playing as your typical 5 or 7 man guy. He was playing literally as a 2-eye, or literally sometimes lining up as a 0 in a 2 point stance, literally just playing as a primary bull rusher. You saw Michael Hoyt play as an off ball linebacker or more towards the edge, and to a point where Michael Hoyt was not only he was calling out the stunt variations based off of the offensive line checks, based off of basically it was a cat and mouse game, where it was okay. Let's run into this. The center or the quarterback would change up the protection. Then they would audible, and they would literally switch up from them going to a 3-4 for them to going into something else, to more of an even man front, just literally based off of what they saw. That's what we're gonna. The good thing is that we're seeing a lot more of that this particular season. So it's not that huge of a transition, but obviously Jim Leonard wants his guys, right? He wants to bring in his guys. He's not going to run in with McDermott guys, because you saw that when one or two of those guys goes down, the defense went completely to hell. We had to go back to running to running our base 4-3, 4-2-5 sort of scheme, and we couldn't run those hybrid sets as much as we want to because we didn't have the right personnel equated to running it. So that's why you don't see Matt Milano or Shaq Thompson here. That's why you don't see Jordan Phillips or a lot of these defenders. That's why you had to trade a Teron Johnson, who's really more of an extra outside linebacker and someone that can be solid in zone coverage. But for the most part, you gotta. We want more versatility. We want more hybrid players that can play multiple different roles within this defense. And so unfortunately, when you do all that, you have to bring in you have to bring in younger pieces or more, or if you're going to get those higher pieces, you're going to have to spend the money for it, which you saw what we were able to do. So you know I get it, right? It's like we focus way too much on defense, that it's like we got to focus on with Josh Allen now. But listen, we don't want to go into this thing with a barely a top 20 defensive unit and having a high powered number one ranked offense. That's just not going to win Super Bowls. It rarely does. So the defense should be the priority, but Bills fans want a receiver, so it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I want to see is a reversion back to 2021, where put up a ton of points, we could score on anybody, we just couldn't stop guys when we needed to. Like, just getting off the field on third down has been such an Achilles heel for this team in the playoffs. Getting to the quarterback, being able to consistently get defensive stops in the playoffs, and I'm not expecting the team. I'm not expecting the Bills to hold everybody to under 20 points. But I mean, can you just not give up 30? Like, I mean, I think that's the threshold point for me because I think the Bills offensively can put up 27 plus points a game on anybody. Doesn't matter. I don't care how good your defense is. The Bills offensively, I think with this offensive line, adding in a guy like DJ Moore, you still have Shakir, you still have the tight ends, you still have, uh, Palmer, Coleman, however you feel about those guys. Shavers will be coming back at some point. Um, I think you have enough to, obviously with Josh Allen to score 27 points on pretty much whoever you go against. You're just keeping teams under 24. Like, I don't give up 30, but if you can keep teams under 24 points, I think the Bills win a lot more playoff games. I think the playoff record since Josh Allen's been here looks a lot different if we just keep teams under 24 points. Um, so focusing on and before we get into that, I've explored TikTok a bit over the last few weeks. Ever since like X has been screwing up for me, I kind of explored TikTok a little bit. Uh, Very casual. Like there are some ball notes, there are some, but it is it's pretty casual over there. God told me today the Bills have one more shot to get it done. If not, it's time to blow the team up. Majors that asked him to explain it. He just said, "How many more chances do you think you're gonna get?" It's not really a football answer, but that's the level of the conversation that I'm getting over there. But not that's the level of the conversation I'm getting. Usually, there are some ball noise over there, but it's not nearly as many as Twitter. So focusing on the defense because putting up points is gonna, obviously that's something that's obviously gonna come. Like we're not worried about that. Focusing on the defense, where what's the biggest if you had to if you were forced to nail down the top need, you can only add one position. What position would it be? And go into the season. Oh, I think we just lost there. Yeah, yeah. What's going on? What's going on, big dog? Roman Monkey. All right. Well, welcome. Welcome, man. Welcome. Yeah, nose tackle. That is something that I think we could oh yeah, absolutely casual. IG to read the comments. Yeah, it's pretty bad, dog. It's pretty bad. It really is. So I'm gonna go over the stuff that Jerick and I did talk about. Uh, we did have a discussion on what position we wanted to look at, and first is defensive tackle. Oh, so he's back. All right. Welcome back, bro.
Yep, there it is. I'm not saying
Uh,
I'm having technical difficulties.
it's all good, man. It happens, man. All right, so defensive tackle. That's I think that's a fair starting point. You gave me a list of guys, 4 guys we're gonna take a look at. Peter Woods, Clemson, Grayson Holton, Oklahoma, Lee Hunter, Texas Tech,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and Kristen Miller, I believe he's Georgia, right? So
Mm-hmm.
now you ranked. Now I gave the order the same order that you gave to me. Is that how you rank those guys in that order?
Yep.
So you have Lee Hunter ahead of Kristen Miller.
Yes, I do.
Okay. We're gonna have to get into that because I kind of have it the other way because of the athletics and just from the athletic standpoint. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think Christian Miller is a better athlete, but when you turn the tape on Lee Hunter looks a lot better. So I'll give you that. Now no Caden McDonald. We don't have Caden. All right, so let's start with Peter Woods. Give me your assessment of Peter Woods.
So Peter Woods, so he had this year was more of a down year, but it wasn't just him. Literally everybody on that Clemson defense had a down year, and I don't really blame the player. I blame the coaching staff. The coaching staff has been a complete disaster over the last kind of couple of seasons. T.J. Parker, him went down. Demonte Capar had a pretty solid season, but like their best defensive lineman that year was Will Helt. But the scheme just, I mean, the scheme just doesn't really make any sense for what they were trying to do. They were trying to be more of a hybrid defense, even though it should just be a more of an even man front team sort of scheme. But but Peter Woods, in terms of what he can do, he's the best. He is the best defensive tackle overall in terms of what I think Jim Leonard wants to do, which is basically have an explosive defensive tackle that can be a gap finder, could be more of a hybrid, could be more of a hybrid, probably more, maybe not more of a natural two gapper, but you want to be a gap, but you do want to be a gap player. So I think as a gap finder, a gap player, which is basically in a way just high IQ, smart recognition, knowing when to kind of place certain gaps, knowing when to stack in certain sort of positions, like what I'm saying, and just kind of winning with short twitch, winning with short area quickness, explosive get off into the gaps, instinctive more of gap attack in terms of that anticipation vision, really more processing four run plays. Um, you know, I think he's the best all around defensive tackle that I think the Buffalo Bills can try to get to. Now, I don't know if the Buffalo Bills are going to run a 3-4 tight as their base, which is, again, this is where you include that 330, 40, or at least 30, 40 pound zero tech. I don't know if they want to go into that because we go back and look at Jim Leonard when he was with the Broncos and when he was with Wisconsin. He at Wisconsin was more of a 3-4 tight, but he started to lean more towards the traditional, more of a not more of a modern Jeff Wilcox sort of nose tackle it's 310, 305, maybe 315 pounds, but you're not one dimensional. You're doing way more compared to your prototypical I'm just going to eat up space nose tackle. And Peter Woods can pretty much do whatever you want to do. Now, is he a gap player? He can be an A gap player in terms of if you want him as a gap shooter. But if you want gap shooter, he can occasionally stack. But ultimately, his home is going to be a three tech to a base. Is going to be more of a three tech 4-eye. Maybe if you want to do that, if you want to use him more as a DN, I think more of a three tech is more of his natural home. But again, and you'll see on my list, Grayson Holton isn't your nose tackle either. However, what they both do is that in terms of stunt variations, they're the best. They're the best defensive tackles I've seen so far in terms of stunt variations, and that's the key. Jim Leonard runs more stunts than any defensive coordinator I have than any defensive coordinator I've seen. With the Denver Broncos, again, even though he wasn't the main DC, Vance Joseph, the Broncos man, they ran more stunts with their defensive tackles than anyone in the league. At Wisconsin, he ran more stunts than anyone else in the league. So in terms of what Jim Leonard likes to do, he loves his nose tackles and his other DNs or defensive tackles. He loves for them to crash, penetrate, slant, and again, they run again week well I call it ton, which is basically tackle over nose or nose under tackle or short term is nut pause. That's what Jim Leonard likes to run, right? Kind of one of more where and if you don't know what ton is, it's basically like it's a defensive tackle. Either you're looping under or you're looping over the nose tackle in a coordinated twist. That's kind of what that is, right? The ton or that. Jim Leonard runs a shit ton of it. Excuse my language. He runs a lot of it. So the reason why I'm opposed to some of these guys like a Caden McDonald is because Caden McDonald, even though Caden McDonald can slant in terms of his lateral agility on tape and how they use him on step variations, he's basically only good for slanting. You're not going to be using him in twists. We're twisting a lot within this defense. So in terms of a high coordinated defensive tackle that's got the high Q, that's got the anticipation to play as a gap finder, that is the Jim Leonard defensive tackle. But of course, if he can also figure out ways for him to stack and also figure out ways to, in those certain occasions in the run, that's really, really good. Unfortunately, there's probably maybe one defensive tackle that I'm honestly more comfortable at. The problem is that he's hurt a lot, and that's Caleb Banks. I probably would say that Caleb Banks would be the best tackle. I can't trust his foot. 3 foot injuries in a year and a half is insane, and I don't know if the Buffalo Bills are willing to gamble it. However, if Peter Woods falls to 26, they'll take it. They don't care that he has 31-inch arms. They don't care in the fact that he's like 310 pounds and that he's basically another TJ Sanders 3-tech. He's better than TJ Sanders in terms of the role that he's going to present within this scheme. He's way better than TJ Sanders in stump variations. He's way better at stacking, and most importantly, in terms of gap penetrating and as a pass rusher that actually does have a pass rushing move set. He has a pass rushing bag within his game. Peter Woods can do it. So he's the most out of all the defensive tackles. I think he's the most complete in terms of athleticism and in terms of pass rushing, stacking, and gap finding potential.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. I mean, and Dog just like before you even said Caleb Banks, he brought Caleb Banks up in the chat. Want to put that up there. The one thing that I look at when it comes to a Peter Woods, it gives you the semblance of versatility to where you can take him and you can take Deion Walker. Eventually, I guess if they play Carter, you can take all of those guys. Even Ed has played nose in college. You can take all of those guys and move them all over the place inside. So, from a versatility standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. Watching Peter Woods against LSU this year, he took on a fair amount of double teams and really stood his ground. I was impressed by that, by just the strength. But over the course of a 17-week season or 17 games in the season and the playoffs, because if you come to the Bills, you're pretty much guaranteed to play at least 2 playoff games. So. I don't know that his body holds up if he's consistently asked to anchor or to or to be responsible for 2 gaps, take on doubles. I don't know that his body or anybody, any of these guys that are not even Grayson Holden, I worry about. But I don't want to switch off of Peter Woods yet, but because I do think he fits what they want to do as far as getting after the passer. My question to you is defending the run, which has been an Achilles heel for the Bills. Where do you think the addition of Peter Woods places the Bills at? Like, does he improve the run defense, or is the run defense pretty much going to be what it was, whether he was here or not?
This is this is where I think this can kill Peter Woods a little bit because I don't think he's a bad run defender. He's not a bad run defender at all. If you go based off of his 2024 tape, he was elite at it. This year, he was a little more of a down year. So I feel like with Peter Woods, it's high risk, it's high reward, right? The reward is you get Peter Woods. Not only are you getting a solid run defender where if he's left 1-on-1, I think this is regardless. He's left 1-on-1 despite 31-inch arms because of how violent his hands and his initial punch is, and the fact that we talk about a pass rushing bag. Well, guess what? He also has a run defending bag. So it is that. So it depends. What do you want Peter Woods for him to do? Because if you want him to simply just if you want him to get to penetrate, right, in the run game, Peter Woods can win all day because he has an explosive get off and he has an explosive first step. He's got the lateral quickness. And again, we talked about this a little earlier. if you're gonna use him in stunt variations to create those mismatches where he can still win in the run game, because that does exist, he's gonna dominate. Now, if you want him to just simply just be a no to be a run plugger, he can run plug, but he's a little inconsistent. He can get washed, and that's where you do see the lack of some, and it's not even the lack of arm length at particular times. That's where you can see at particular times, um, just him just kind of losing the hand checking fights, right? Not to mention too, I think his leverage. I think he loses the leverage battle at tops. I think his more of his footwork in terms of some of those choppy steps. Um, I think that definitely kind of plays into a factor as well. I think block shedding and I think anchor strength, he doesn't really have the best there. And then gap discipline, right? Gap discipline a lot. Like sometimes, like when you have the skill set of a Peter Woods, when you know you can win based off of athleticism, sometimes gap discipline plays a factor. And Grayson Holland has the exact same issue. You're going too far up the field. You're not really maintaining that gap integrity. Um, assignment soundness and kind of structured defense of where you want him to do is not really there. But honestly, like again, it's just recognition of certain plays, flow, kind of kickoff blocks, combo responsibilities, and that's something that Peter Woods is going to have to do because instead of trying to take those particular things on, he tries to go around those things. He tries to go around or he tries to undercut those things to make the play instead of kind of holding his ground. And that's where a Caden McDonald or some of those other defensive tackles, you those bigger bodies, that's where they're very, very good at. So Peter Woods it's high risk, high reward, and it depends on what you want him to do. Based off of what I've seen from Jim Leonhard so far, in terms of what he wants his defensive tackles to do, your job is to basically cause disruption. Your job is basically cause disruption within the gap. That's your job. It's not to stack it, it's not to hold, it's causing disruption. And the best way for you to cause disruption is basically creating chaos of just pretty much getting up the field, being a gap finder, just being a gap finder for the most part. So, it depends of what Leonard wants to do. I don't think that this is the standard defense of what you want to know or what you want a defensive tackle to play in the run game. It's a little bit more unique. And so if Jim Leonard lets Peter Woods does what he does best, then I think that the run game is going to gradually improve. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the question is, does this make Ed Oliver and does this make Ed Oliver better? Does this make Gregory Rousseau have less responsibility to a point where he has to play, where he has to do three different things? Does it make it easier for Deion Walker to a point where even if he is sliding, he's playing as a zero, or if he's playing as a one tech, or whatever position Deion Walker's playing, does it ease his responsibility? We didn't have the defensive tackles that could ease the responsibility. But a lot of the times, even though I haven't been the biggest fans of some of these defensive tackles, at the same time, though, I don't think McDermott put these players in the right situations in time in the run game where you can make it easier on Deion Walker, but not only just him, but you can make it easier on these players. And so I think that Jim Leonhard, in terms of what the scheme presents, can give Peter Woods, basically, do what he does best. That last year at Clemson, what they were asking him to do, which was basically being more of a gap stack guy. That's not Peter Woods. That's not his strength. If you allow him to do what he did in 24, paired up with a complement like a Demonte Capehart who can stack, and you can just let him be disruptive and be creative while using Peter Woods in those run game situations. Peter Woods is probably the best defensive tackle within this draft class, and it's not even close.
That's my guy, K part, man. Pulling for K part later on in the draft. That'll
Yeah, I
satisfy
like
my
Capehart.
need for a
Mm-hmm.
defensive tackle. Because I want a guy that can not only two gap, but can alleviate some of that. I really what it is for me, whoever we get, I want them to be a good run defender because they're gonna be at the point of attack on the defensive line. But I also want them to be big enough to give guys like Deion Walker and Ed Oliver an opportunity to get one on ones consistently. Because I think if you can consistently get one on ones for those two guys, you're gonna dominate with interior pressure all year long. So and you talked about Michael Hood already. I think when Michael Hood comes back, the defense only gets better because of how smart of a player he is. Um, think that chaos, that
Mm-hmm.
organized chaos, will. I think that could be the difference in us getting off the field on third down, or getting out of a game that normally, over the last few years we would end up losing to one of these elite quarterbacks. Um, but let's move on to Grayson Holton. Uh, was he 6'2", 6'3",
Mm-hmm.
295, out of Oklahoma. What's your insight on him?
I think he's the best defense. I think in terms of stunts, he's the best in the class in terms of stunts that I've seen. You can pretty practically use him on any stunt, and he's gonna be very, very effective. He's one of the most explosive, if not the most explosive defensive tackle in this entire draft class. I don't think it's even close. If you just want a straight up knifer, a guy that can knife through interior lines for TFLs and pressures, this is the guy. Now again, the thing that shocked me so much when watching his film was how many times they lined him up at 0 and how much they lined up at 1, and how he was able to kind of handle his own, or even when he had those one-on-one situations, how quick he got off. And he just practically won with just athletic ability. But it wasn't just the athletic ability. He would kill you with the rip and a club and a hump move. And it was just so fun to watch when just looking at him. But in terms of in stunt variations, they use them on TE stunts, they use them on tech stunts, they use them on different interior twist concepts we just talked about earlier. They do use them in ton or in NUT stunts. Those nose under and over tackles stunt variations. They use them as a looper. He's just so fun, man. But yeah, he frequently kind of participates in those A gap, kind of B gap exchanges. Again, Oklahoma, and I think this is a huge reason why Jay Valai is over here. Jim Leonard runs a lot of delayed blitzes. Vance Joseph runs I mean, we know from experience they run a lot of advanced delayed blitzes. He's a guy, Grayson Holton. Oklahoma runs a lot of delayed blitzes, right? And so, in a lot of those delayed blitzes where the defensive line kind of crashes and the other one kind of loops, it kind of loops a little bit in the responsibility, where another linebacker kind of waits his turn, finds that gap, explodes to it, and make plays. That's what Jim Leonard does. That's a staple within his defense at Wisconsin, and what Vance Joseph did with the Denver Broncos. That's also a staple, by the way, of Dave Aranda when he was at Baylor. That's why you wonder why Terrell Bernard had 6.5 sacks. Go back and watch those sacks. A lot of those sacks came on delayed blitzes. Look at the defensive line responsibility in terms of what they did to create those whole openings where Bernard got those sacks. That's why, to me, Grayson Holton makes way more sense. And listen, I understand and I get it. He's 292 pounds. He is light. However, what does Jim Leonard? This goes back to the question in terms of what does we think of 3-4 and we think of Vince Wilfork. We think of a guy that can just all that can free up everybody else to get to the quarterback, right? We think of and again, Vince Wilfork was a one-of-one at playing nose, but like a Snack Harrison with the Jets. Snack Harrison was like one of the most underrated nose tackles you ever see. But that's just I don't know if Jim Leonard is going to go towards it. I just don't know, and I think that may disappoint Bills fans because we want to try to increase the run game, but you know what else we need to increase? We need to increase getting creative pressure to the quarterback in the interior. We've been terrible at creating pressure to the quarterback, right? And so I hate to say it, but if we're going to run the stunt variations and be creative in those particular aspects, increase the percentage there to an all-time high, as I think we are, Grayson Holden makes the most sense. Not just because he's an Oklahoma product, which, by the way, Jay Valai's on the staff, but because of he actually might be the most familiar in terms of what Jim Leonard wants to do with this defensive line. So, to me, in terms of if we're going off of his skill set, right, footwork, contact balance, the reason even though he's 292, he's strong. You can tell he's got a strong lower body because it's rare that he gets washed out of a play. It's rare that if an offensive lineman punches him on the side when he's trying to rush a field, that he gets knocked off balance and gets knocked off of his rush lane. He's still going straight forward, so he's strong. So he's extremely strong in terms of his base to stay on course when bumping blockers during the twist. That's also very, very important for those stunt variations, right? So that strong base at 292, you'll look at the size and say, like Grayson Hall, and he's small up the ass. But then you watch him on certain stunts, and he's getting punched and and punched and slapped, and they're trying to knock him off course. You can't really do it because he has that strong of a base. So first step quickness, footwork, contact balance, active hands, man, active hands, which is extremely good because he has his own violent punch, swim, club rip move set. And of course, he has some, you see him on some effective spins, but just overall wise, just kind of, that ability to convert speed to power, right? That ability to convert speed to power and combined with the relentless motor and pursuit is just it's dangerous. It really is dangerous. And this is honestly, when we picked up TJ Sanders does some things well. He doesn't do this. And this is why, again, I tried to like that pick. I tried to take a look at the upside. I understand the things that he does well. He doesn't do this. He
It
just
looks
doesn't.
worse every it looks worse. The further away we are from that pick, the worse it
It's
looks.
just
Like
terrible. Yeah, it's just terrible.
you take Alfred Collins there, we're not having this conversation. You know,
It's it's just terrible. So he again, like Holton's not a two gap player. Like he can do it at occasions, but ultimately his job is to disrupt. You play him in the A gap, he's gonna disrupt. You play him at one tech or two tech, he's most likely gonna he's gonna cause chaos disruption, whether if it's penetrating or just simply being a decoy and stunts. You play him at a two eye inside shade of the guard. For the most part, he's gonna shoot the gaps or cross face again. You play him at four eye or five tech. It's just he's gonna he has the athleticism to kind of handle some of the four eye work, which is basically again some two gap particular responsibilities that he can do. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he's a gap finder. He's a natural gap finder or a gap rusher, very very similar to Peter Woods. Um, and his job is to basically cause chaos. But ultimately, in stunt variations, this is a guy ultimately that can get you around 5, 6, 7 sacks. This is that type of player. This is kind of like I'm not gonna say. I'm trying to think of this is basically this is what Malcolm Roach was doing with the Broncos. Malcolm Roach, by the way, who caused us hell in that Broncos game. This is what he was doing. And so when people were saying that that's a nose tackle, like that's not their nose tackle. He may look like even though they may say that he's playing at the nose position, he's 295 pounds. Malcolm Roach was doing the exact same thing that he was, which was basically causing chaos and disruption. And eventually, even though he's not gonna hold up guys, just because you're not holding up guys doesn't mean that you can't free up players like Zach Allen and other players or those other players to go ahead and get free shots in the backfield. There are a lot of other things that you can do to create chaos, and I think Grayson Holton is the best guy that can create that chaos along with Peter Woods.
agree. I like Grayson Holton a lot. Size does scare me. Um, but again, that's another versatility pick if they were to go that route. When I saw Grayson Holton, um, the Senior Bowl. I mean, once I saw him at the Senior Bowl, I said, "This guy reminds me of Zach Allen. Reminds me a lot of Zach Allen." So it would make sense if they selected him. Comes from the school where Jay Valai was at. He is built similar. Shorter. He's shorter than Allen, but my fault. He's shorter than Allen, but about the same size and build, and I do think that they have a similar motor. Um, Zach Allen's not a guy that gives up on plays. Grayson Holton is going to play. He's going to fight with you into the whistle. So, um, and I think because of his quick, like one thing I noticed about him in all his reps that I watched, how quick he gets off the ball. Like I mean, it's almost immediate with the snap. He beats offensive linemen to their spot. They're as soon as they as soon as they get into that kick step, he's already shoulder pad to shoulder pad. He's ready to blow by you at this point. So um, Grayson Holton definitely another one of my favorites. We got two more. Lee Hunter. You want to do Lee Hunter? Do you want to discuss Lee Hunter? What do you
Yeah, we
think?
can. Yeah, we can do Leoner. we can.
Not
Yeah,
an
we can.
athlete.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But when you turn on the game film, he is constantly making plays. Strong, physical. He's quicker than fast. Uh, man, he's an extremely powerful player. Extremely powerful player. Uh, I gotta see what his bench score was. I would be surprised if he benched less than 25 reps. He's a very physical, very strong player. Um, but definitely more of a tradition. Definitely closer to the nose tackle that we're talking about. Um, but not. I don't know that he's a looper more than he's a what do you call him a knifer? Not a knifer. What was your term, bro?
Oh, more as like a gap penetrator or just a
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, I think he lost a little draft stock at the combine. I don't know why these big guys do all of these drills, bro. Like it doesn't help you out. So, but I like Lee Hunter. I still like him. I don't like him in the first round. I really don't like him in the second round. I feel like if you can get Lee Hunter at the top of the third, you should take it. I do think he's a good player, but there are some athletic issues that I worry about. Uh, but I do think he fits. He fits in need. He definitely fits in need. Probably not the high ceiling that some of these other guys have, but I think he comes in and contributes right away. What's your take on Mr. Lee Hunter?
Yeah, so Lee Hunter is so the good thing, if you want to take him is that he's going to be very effective in the run game. Now, he's not a zero. He's not a zero. I don't even really say that he's a one. If he could be, but I think he's more of a 4-3 nose than a 3-4 nose. Um, if he was able to play in that position. Lee Hunter is a he. I will say this though, he's a gap filler. He's a gap filler. He is someone for the most part. He can anchor down extremely well. He's a phenomenal run stopper. He has violent hands. He can win with leverage and just brute force to kind of demolish any sort of run concept that's getting his way. I said, yep, he can two gap effectively. He create kind of stops at the point of attack. And then this is where that versatility kind of comes in, is that even though he can play zero tech and one tech technically within this defense, he's probably best suited to play more as at the three tech position, because he does have that quickness where he can penetrate, he can knife, for his size. And so, he's got underrated pursuit. He's got underrated pursuit angles. Right, he doesn't quit. He doesn't really get lazy. He's always chasing down plays from behind, so that's really really good in terms of that lateral movement. But his superpower is his hands. Like, that's his superpower. It's his hands, and he is so damn powerful, and he knows how to utilize it to that advantage. Where, that's why in the Senior Bowl in particular cases, even though he's not the quickest, he's not the fastest, that 40 time doesn't present it. A lot of the drills that you see will win it. He's still winning double teams, and he's getting effective pressure in to the quarterback. Just because of how well he uses his hands. Um, he's not the only one. Caden McDonald, Deontay Corleone, Dominique Orange, Cape Hart, Daryl Jackson, every single one of these big, strong nose tackles has the same problem. They're way too reliant on power. They're way too reliant on it, right? He is again, he's a bull rush, power rusher, push pull, player. Like, that's him, right? But, again, like, active, quick, kind of powerful hands. He does have a little bit more of a pass rush plan, utilizing the power too much on it, but he still has that plan at least to be able to convert to a point where he's still getting effective pressure. Stack and shed, the ability to kind of create that separation, win those leverage battles at particular times. He's going to win off of that. But yeah, he's a power rusher, man. I mean, you're going to see hump moves and arm overs, or you're going to see a lot of him pushing the pocket. That like so I think one of the things that I think we were missing was that we were missing guys that could we were missing guys that can collapse the pocket, right? Funny enough, the two best players that were the best at collapsing the pocket was Deion Walker and Gregory Rousseau when he was lined up playing as a nose from a 2-point stance. Like those are guys that are forcing the quarterback, to either climb up or to either try to go outside to the outside. We just didn't have the edges that can play the contain, or we didn't have the other defensive tackles that can go ahead and do their job and to try to, in a sense, smother the quarterback. We just didn't have it. But Lee Hunter is going to be one of those guys. He's going to push the guard. He's going to push a center. He is that powerful of a guy. Now, he does play too high, right? I talked about how he wins in leverage. He does play at high at TV. He does play high a lot. I think that's kind of a fault sometimes where you will see him getting stalled just simply because the lower man wins. You'll see in certain situations where against Bo Stevens, the lower man wins. And because, if Lee Hunter, if he doesn't have the hands correct in the right place, he's going to lose off of a snatch trap. And you see Lee Hunter falling flat on his face. I mean, that happens a lot with him. So I think that's going to have to definitely be corrected. Again, he does have limited athletic ability. That does play a factor. But, I mean, overall wise, I mean, Lee Hunter, I think the one thing that I like about him so much is that I'm not going to say that he's an immovable object because that's not, I don't think he's Kaden McDonald, right? I don't think he's Dominique Orange in that particular aspect. But what he is that he's a hybrid. He's more of a hybrid nose tackle where he can play those run responsibilities, but it's also good that you can also play him as a pass rusher. He's a 3-down nose tackle. Texas Tech doesn't rotate their defense. Like, they didn't rotate at all, basically. He's a 3-down nose. He's a 3-down nose tackle, which, again, that's really, really nice in terms of creativity, in terms of where you can play him at. Now, he's not the best in stunt variations. Again, you can use him on particular twists and here and there, but you don't want him looping. You definitely do not. You don't want him looping, even though he's proven that he can do it, but you got to have a complete defensive line in order for him to kind of do that. But again, you can use him in certain stunts. But ultimately, he's a pocket collapsing, power rushing nose tackle. That's probably, out of all these big, powerful noses, probably has the best hands out of any of these defensive tackles, maybe with the exception of Peter Woods and Grayson Halton and Caleb Banks.
If we had more picks, it would make sense to go grab a guy like Lee Hunter and then, get yourself another defensive tackle that's a little more of a stunt variation type of defensive tackle. Like if you get Lee Hunter and Holton, or Lee Hunter and Peter Woods, like I think you're cooking. But that's not happening. That's not happening.
Fortunately.
Right. Where do you think he ends up? Where do you think Lee Hunter ends up going? What round?
I got him in the second. I got him in the second round. I got him as a top 40. I got him as like somewhere in the 40s. He could go anywhere as high as early 30s, but I think he's a mid-second round guy. I think someone's going to take a shot. I think someone is definitely going to take a shot on him, and he'll be one of the final pieces to the puzzle in terms of kind of transforming a defense. It's just, man, it sucks because I actually think it's a possibility that if we would have had that second round pick, I think even at 60, I think there might have been a chance to grab him because there might have been players in place that they may take over him just because he isn't that traditional nose tackle or he isn't the most powerful nose tackle that can play those run responsibilities where some teams may value that and they may take a player as high. Like Darrell Jackson can go way higher than what I think he can go to. Devontae Capehart, despite some of the troubles he had, could go way higher than I expect him to go into. Deontay Corleone could go way higher than you just never know in those particular aspects. And then, what if a Kaden McDonald falls? What if a Christian Miller falls? I think that there was a chance that if we would have had 60, that Lee Hunter could have fell to us. Even though, again, I'm not going to be heavily reliant upon that, but he's a good player, man. He's a very, very good player. I'm glad that a lot of people are starting to recognize that he is a high value defensive tackle within this class. Because last year he could have came out of Central Florida and he would have been a 5th, 6th round pick, and he would have been a steal for somebody else's team because I think he's that good of a football player. So I'm glad he was able to get his opportunity.
All right, we're gonna go. We're gonna go with Christian Miller, and unfortunately, I'm going to uh, have to push wide receivers to next week. Um, yeah, I'm gonna have to push wide receivers to next week, and kind of get him out of here. But yeah, let's talk Christian Miller. Maybe we'll do one. Maybe we'll do one.
Mm-hmm.
But talk to me about Christian
He's the most versatile out of all the noses. He's the most versatile in terms of what he can do. The athletic ability is he's not an elite athlete, right? He's not Jordan Davis. He's not Jalen Carter. That's not what he is. But he is a Georgia defensive tackle, and he is very, very versatile. He plays literally all across the line from 0 all the way to 5. I don't think he's a nose tackle. He can play it. I think at certain occasions, I think he's way more stronger, way more versatile than Peter Woods or Grayson Holmes to play that particular position. But he's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none sort of football player, right? Like he's very good against the run. He excels at the point of attack. Again, he's a guy that has explosion, so he can fire off the ball pretty quickly with urgency and power. He can drive blockers backward. He can collapse the pocket. He can disrupt the run. He can stack and shed more single blockers. Like that's his super strength is him stacking and shedding against single blockers, but against double blockers, okay at it. It's not really the greatest at it, but ultimately his superpower is his IQ. Very very smart player, can process. He can maintain gap control, can squeeze those lanes, and he has that awareness and kind of hustle where basically it's going to be extremely hard for you to kind of bounce outside of him if he does to bounce outside of him, or if you're going to try to force your way into the inside. Very very powerful guy, right? Got that violent hands and strong anchor. But yeah, I mean, he plays. I mean, I think the motor is also really right nice. I think he's a very, 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 tough kid. He's got some pass rushing upside within his game, even though, again, I don't think his pass rushing bag is complete. He has shown the ability that he has that upside. Um, but yeah, I mean, I like teams are going to fall in love with the fact that yeah, he can play 0 through 5. They're gonna fall in love with it. And the fact that he's 320 pounds, and I think there's like a viral image where he's like 320 pounds, and yet he has like a flat stomach. Like it's and that's I don't think he played at 320. I think he buffed up to 320. He may try to maintain it, but he's a freak, man, in terms of just the physique that he has, and that's just Georgia players, man. The man had a flat, almost a 6-pack at 320 pounds. Um, but yeah,
Miller.
jack of all
Playing
trades.
football outside in 90-degree weather.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and then the water in Georgia and Athens is completely different. I don't know, but he's just a smart player, man. Gap integrity, occupation. He's rarely out of his stuff. He is again he is gap discipline. You will rarely see him out of position to make plays, and so as Holton will be out at times, Peter Woods will be out at times, Lee Hunter will be out at times, but when it comes to him, no, he is about the team, right? Any team that interviews him, I can tell in the film room, teams are going to be extremely impressed with Christian Miller because he will, because he's the type of player he says, like everyone says they're about the team. No, Christian Miller actually proves that on the field that he is about the team. He's not chasing stats. He is basically doing his job. He does his job. He doesn't act like Superman, and he lets and again, if his teammates make plays, that counts as a sack for him. If he can go out there and make a play, great. But he is about the team, and he was one of those leaders on a Georgia Kirby Smart like defense, and so that's something that you really really like. He's one of the few players that actually played in a 3-4. So he played in a 3-4, 3-3-5 with Kirby Smart, that sort of defense. But yeah, he can penetrate, he can disrupt, he can maintain gap integrity, he can control gaps, he can two gap if you want him to. Um, and I think he can diagnose. Even though you can get him on more complex plays, like you can get him on complex plays, and then again, like unfortunately, because he's a jack of all trades guy, unfortunately, you know, he doesn't do anything at an elite level compared to a Caden McDonald against the run, a Lee Hunter with his hands, a Peter Woods with his, or Grayson Holland with his gap finding or gap shooting responsibilities. That's just not what he does. But again, if you want more of a balanced defensive tackle that basically can do everything you want him to, a true 3 down level player, I think Christian Miller is that guy.
I don't disagree, man. I don't disagree. Um, I didn't get a chance to review his game film. I had a nice little doctor's appointment today. Everything turned out so good. So far so good.
All right, yeah, that's
But
nice.
yeah, man, a little nervous. I ain't gonna lie. Had your boy under anesthesia, man. But
Oh man.
it's all good. Yeah, it's all good now. All right, so we got four guys. And these are guys that you could see the Buffalo Bills drafting and those guys fitting what we do. If you had to choose out of the four, Peter Woods, uh, Grayson Halton, Lee Hunter, and Christian Miller, who are you taking? And when I say that, I mean like if you want Peter Woods, you may have to go up and get him. Is he worth going up to get? Grayson Holton, if you don't get him, I think late second, early third, he's probably gone. Um, Lee Hunter, definitely second round, like you said, second round. I think maybe third, depending on how the board falls, but I don't. Second round sounds about right. Um, and then there's Christian Miller, who I have no idea where he's gonna go. I mean,
Hmm.
I've seen mocks where he's been a top 40 player. I've seen mocks where he doesn't go to the third round later, even later. So, out of those guys, who's your pick?
Oh man, see, and this is the hard part. This is definitely the hard part. If it was up to me, and if it was up to me, see, I'm not chasing Peter Woods. If Peter Woods falls to 26, I'm taking him. Like that is a no-brainer pick. I'm running up to the podium if Peter Woods falls to me at 26. But I'm not chasing to trade away a draft pick or player to snag him up. I'm just not doing it. Um, None of these defensive tackles, and this is what kind of kills me, is that I don't think any of these defensive tackles are first round worthy. I don't think any of these defensive tackles. I don't even think like some of the guys that we didn't mention, like Caden McDonald. I know Bills, they visited Ohio State, and Caden McDonald could be an option, and I wouldn't have that much of a problem with it. I just wouldn't pick him at 26 because why are you
You know they're
picking up
gonna
a
take.
2 down player?
You know they're gonna take Lorenzo Styles, man.
Oh man, well I can definitely see that, and then I can definitely see that in the fifth and sixth round, and he'll essentially be a special teams player. But yeah, see if it was up to me, and this is gonna piss some Bills fans off. I would take Grayson Holton. I would do it. I would take Grayson Holton. That would be my pick at 26 if I had to choose one out of the defensive tackles. I understand that he doesn't do a lot of the things that we want our defensive tackle to do. I understand that we want to try to make life easier for Deion Walker by basically pushing him out. But if I think what Jim Leonard is going to do with this defensive tackle, which is basically this is coming from his words, is causing chaos and just causing disruption, mayhem, then that does not mean having a defensive tackle pretty much being a guy that can just dominate and maintain all throughout the A gap or at the nose or at the zero attack position. That's
Right.
basically meaning that we are stunt city. We are
Looking
turning
for
into
skill
stunt
set.
city.
Yep. You're looking for that. You're looking for the player that can do what the scheme at or scheme fit. You need a guy that can do what he's going to be asked to do. So I get it. I get it. So Grayson Holton is the guy. Man, Jerick, listen, I appreciate it. I apologize for cutting it short, but I have to cut it short at this point. And
No
hopefully
problem.
you'll
No
be able
problem.
to come back next week, man. Next week, and then we can get into the receivers and linebackers and safeties. I know that Yeah, I know safety. Safety still, to me, safety's still a need because
Mm-hmm.
the two guys that we brought in on 1 year deals, and the other guy, Sam Franklin's a special teams only guy. What are we doing with that? So we definitely need to add depth and safety. So yeah, man, uh, Chauncey Gardner Johnson and Geno Stone, they're on 1 year deals. I feel like Geno Stone is probably going to end up being here for a while, but um, we're definitely going to need a starting level, free safety, coverage style safety. So, but we'll discuss that next week. Jerick, do you have anything that you would like to plug to the viewers, man? The floor is yours.
Oh yeah, man. Follow me at Jan Sports on X. You can follow me on X at Jan716. If you want to follow me on YouTube, you can follow me at Jan Sports. Um, if especially if you want to see a lot more of my rants. But anyway, yeah. But that's pretty much about it.
Yeah, and Jerick is one of my closest soldiers in the on team defense. Whenever we have civil wars on Twitter with the other Bills fans, it's team wide receiver versus team defense, and Jerick and I have been standing strong on the wall, pulling for defense, man, pulling
Yep.
for the defense. But appreciate everybody coming through. Thank you for stopping in. Appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for interacting. Appreciate you, dog. As always, every week you pull through for me. Um, Jerick, once again, thank you for coming in. And yeah, like and subscribe, man. Check us out. Do Champions, Coast to Coast podcast. We do this every Wednesday at 9. Next week, hopefully, Jerick will be back, and then we can get into these other position groups. We can get a little more in depth with those position groups as well. So that way, when the draft comes up, you guys aren't just sitting there like, "Who the hell is that guy?" You'll know who it is. We've talked about it. We'll go from there, man. So once again, appreciate everybody pulling up. Appreciate everybody stopping through. You could have spent your last hour with anybody else, but decided to spend it with me here, and I appreciate that. Uh, go Bills. We're gonna get out of here. 100%.